Okay, welcome to my video lecture series on Chapter 4, CS285. This is Part 3. They're kind of throwing some odd things in here. I understand why they're doing the check boxes and the radio buttons, but then they just barely touch on list boxes at the end. I'm probably going to go a little further than that because I think it bears more explanation. They may get into it later and probably will in later chapters. But anyway, right now, this is my version of tutorial 4-5, page 248. I already have this example. It's very similar to what they got, but I do have one other thing in here. So let's talk about another control called a group box or group container. Whenever you have on a form objects that you want to set aside that work together, that really don't apply to anything else on the form, it's a good idea to put it in a group box. And I've called this in GRP colors because that's what it contains. It contains 4 radio buttons. Now seminal difference between radio buttons and check boxes are that in radio buttons, when you have these in a group, they're mutually exclusive. If the user checks green, it unchecks red. And if green's check and it checks picker, it's going to uncheck green and then select and then check picker. Now these are checked properties is what they are. And you can set that at runtime or at design time. Let me set this. Go up here. Where's checked? Yeah, it's in here somewhere. I can't see it at the moment, but it's a dot checked property. And if you set that, I wonder why this is not showing me what I want to do here. Let's scroll down, see if I can find it. Cancel button, cursor. Oh well, it's probably on one of these expansion pluses or minuses, grip, start tag, text. Okay, well, because I didn't have it selected. That may be why. Scroll up. Okay, let's see if I can find the check property. Auto check true. There we go, checked. So I could have set any one of these to true. If I set that one true, that one becomes false automatically because they're mutually exclusive. Only one can be checked at the time. All right. You could actually do this in code. It's not really much use to do that because it can cause all sorts of problems with recursive calls and so forth. Now the checkbox also has a check property. So as far as the way the code and the events work, they're the same, except for the fact that checkboxes, you can have one or more checkboxes. You have as many checkboxes checked at one time as you want. So if you need to be able to set certain things like, okay, this person, this is a menu, and this is what they've ordered. They've ordered a hamburger, and they've ordered a milkshake, they've ordered French fries, and each one of those is a checkbox. You need to be able to check more than one thing, okay? Because they can have multiple items from that menu. But here, when they pick a color, they can only pick one at a time. So that's why I'm not going to do one for check boxes and one for radio buttons. I'm going to use radio buttons, but it's the same idea. Let's go view the code here. As you can see, I have RDO click, right? And I probably am using this to handle more than one thing, which we'll look at. So the red click, if it's clicked, if that checked property equals true, that means that it's been selected. So we're going to set the label back color, which is that big rectangle on the right displays the color, using the color object dot red. Okay, color object's another intrinsic object that's probably coming from the drawing using system drawing up here. All right, so if that's not true, then let's see if the RDO green dot checked is true. If that is, we'll set the color to green. If blue has been checked, we'll set the color to blue. Otherwise, I'm going to do a little something special here because there's something called the color dialog object, and I can inherit from that using the new statement, which we'll get into later, but this is how it's done. I'm using an object that's in our using statements up here, probably drawings, or it could be windows. I don't know where exactly it is, but it's somewhere. And you can see it's a light blue, which means it's a valid object. And then this is just like integer myInt, okay? You're actually instantiating from the parent, which is color dialog, creating a child called myDialog, and I'm going to use all those properties and methods from this. And we're breathing life into it using the new statement, color dialog. That's how that works. And then I also have a dialog result, which I can actually look at which button they've clicked when it pops up by examining that. And then I've got, result equals my dialog.show dialog. So that's going to actually show it. It's going to sit there and wait. Once this, just like show my message box, this is show dialog. It's going to pop up a dialog, color picker. Then the user can pick a certain color. And when they do and click OK, it returns that result color in here. And this is just a shortcut. I mean, I did it all in one statement. I could have done it in 2 or 3. I could have just done it like this one, but I did it this way. So we want to see if the user pressed OK. If the result equals OK, then I'm going to grab the color from the color dialog box and stick it in the back color of that label. So that way they can, and there's there's a file dialog box. Oh man, there's a bunch of different dialog boxes that are already built in. There's a calendar, all sorts of things that you can use because of object-oriented design. I'm just grabbing one that I know I want to use, creating a child from it, and then addressing its properties and methods. All right, so let's go look at this and see how this works. Now, I want to do one other thing here. Let's go to check change. I don't see it. Data bindings. Let's go designer. Okay. I'm just checking something here real quick. It's been a while, several years since I've looked at this. This is the code behind where it initializes components. And let's see what we have here. All right, here's what I thought I did. Instead of having a RDO click for each one of these radio buttons, because they all do this, they're all going to have the same code in there, okay? Then I'm just using one click event, and if any of the others fire a click event, if you look at my code behind it, and Visual Basic uses handles, and you could just list them with a comma delimited list. C# is a little bit different, but basically that's my RDO red object with all its properties and methods. Here's the group box. There's RDO picker. Notice what it's doing here. It's throwing the event handler, the click event handler, back to RDO red. So that's what it's going to do. It's that one event's going to fire for all these check radio buttons. So that's basically what's happened. And the reason for that is, and you do that a lot, the reason for that is there's no sense in having a bunch of different click events that have identical code in them. And this is a way to optimize your code. No matter which one clicks, the RDO red click event is handling that click event. So you don't have a RDO red click event with this code in it. You don't have an RDO blue click event with this code in it. You don't have an RDO green click event with this code in it. And you don't have an RDO picker with this the same code in it. There's just no need to do that. And you do that in Visual Basic by using the handles keyword, I believe it is. If you're in VB, you'll see it. Handles, and then you'd have RDO blue, comma, RDO green, comma, whatever. Of course, that doesn't work in C#, but there are ways in different languages to achieve the same thing. So let's run it and see what happens. And these are just if statements. If RDO checked equal true, that means they checked that one. And when it comes up, when the form loads, it is true. So that's set to red automatically before this form ever goes into memory. If I check here, because these are mutually exclusive, green becomes checked and red becomes unchecked. And then the background color here gets set to what? Green. Okay, so let's try it. And blue and red. See that? That's setting properties on the fly during runtime. I'm setting this background property of this label here to the color associated with the action taken by the user. Now, picker is going to I've got a phone call I'm going to ignore because I'm in the middle of a video. Picker is going to throw up this color dialog, my dialog, and then let the user pick any color or create a custom color, define a color, just like that. And when they click OK, if they clicked OK, then it's going to say, did they click OK? If that's not true, what did they click? Cancel, and nothing happens. But if they click OK, it's going to return that color back and set that background color to this color right here, the one that I selected. See that? I can go back to red, green, blue. Let's go back to color picker again. I'm going to pick one, then I'm going to cancel. Now I changed my mind. It's still blue. Even though it's set to picker, it's still blue because I hit cancel. Now I hit black, exit. Alrighty. So that's how radio buttons work in conjunction with if statements. Now you could use a selection statement. I'm not going to go over the selection statement because if you've had any even CS 150, you know the selection statement is just a different instance of a decision making like an if. It's just a different variation of it. On page 252 you can see that, and then over here on 253 checkpoint 4.29 they show you basically the same thing or a very similar thing using an if. They're interchangeable. You can use a switch. You should know the switch for tests and so forth. And now we're going to have one more part 4 on list boxes, where I'm going into a little bit more depth than what they do, because you can see list boxes start on page 253 and go to 258. There's not a lot on them, so, and I'm not going to go into a lot more detail, but I want to give you a little bit better handle on what's going on. All right, well, we're almost done. Hang in there with me. Part 4 is coming up.